Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. I'm DH Divine, and let me just tell you that your softness here is your power. Your voice is so honored, and your soul is so safe to rise to the heavens. Now, we getting back into the mix and gist of things. It's been a hot divine minute, but I'm back, and the first video was an introductory video to who I am. But at the end of the day, there was a lot of missing parts, and it's not easy being able to just lay your life on the line, online it is, right? But it's time. So we're gonna dive deep into who I am with, honey, the mask completely lifted. It's off. Fucking mask off. But not really, because my nerves. But let's get into it. I'm DH Divine, but before we get into my whole life story and me laying it out on the table, let me tell you how I came up with DH Divine. And that's simply because growing up, family would call me Dee Dee. My dad and Nana and them, they would call me Dee. My mom's side, my black side, they would call me Dee Dee. Now, if you was a friend of the family, or you went to school with me and things like that, you would hear them call me Alicia Keys, Mariah Carey, Hannah Montana, Goldilocks, Blondie, things like that. And so Dee Dee experienced a lot growing up, okay? And it wasn't until I went on my spiritual and self-love journey that I was like, okay, how can I still keep this version of me alive, but also still shining light and giving God the glory of where I am now and where I will be later on in life, right? That I'm constantly evolving and growing just like everybody else, baby. We're not complete until the end of our days. But even this version of me now, just really, truly learning to love her and appreciate her and value her, because the work works and it takes a lot of work and a lot of faith and a lot of courage. So I just really wanted to keep that connection, but also still evolve and grow. And again, give God the glory for everything, because I could not be who I am today without God. So that's how I came up with DH Divine. And now let's get into Dee Dee, right? That whole upbringing and growing up and the things that I experienced. This really ain't easy, okay? It ain't easy, but let's get into it. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up in a single black teenage mom household with my little sister. We're 3 years apart. My mom was my little sister's dad, and that relationship was toxic. That was the only time my mom has been married. There was abuse, and they weren't married that long. And so my mother was just really terrified of figuring out how to navigate life with two littles, two little babies under 5 as a teenage mom. And, she ended up leaving. But before she left, my sister's dad was like a father to me. And he was really upset when my mom found my dad. And she was like, I'm going to tell her who her dad is. And I'm going to let my dad know that he has a daughter. I'm 5 years old at the time. And, supposedly my sister's dad didn't want that to happen. And he was really upset about it. But I met my dad when I was 5. And I remember going to get a DNA test. And I look just like the man. But we get a DNA test and confirms that I am indeed his twin. And I meet my Nana and them. And instantly I just felt different. But I'm a kid, like I'm really young, and so I'm not really thinking much about it. But before I meet my dad, I grew up with like my black side. That's all I knew. And I was super spunky, super sassy. Honey, I was always dancing. I love to dress. I always had my hand on my hip. My mama would call me a little diva. And, I was outspoken and really blunt. I loved me some everything hot. Hot sauce, hot chips, hot everything. And so after I met my dad and them, it's so easy for me. And I'm very grateful that I met them when I did, because it's easy for me to really process and navigate and go through my file folder in my brain when the the shift happened. So there's like memory and documentation of me being this way. And then after this time, there's documentation of me being that way. So, you know, it was a drastic shift in my psyche that I don't think anybody can really prepare anybody for. But, you know, my dad too, maybe our parents, they done been through some things. And they're also looking for answers in love, and they're operating out of anger, shame, guilt, fear, doubt, you know. And back then, the internet and things wasn't as popping as it is now. So you didn't have all this access to information about how to raise your kids and all of that. So, baby, by all means, I'm not crucifying anybody, but I'm giving my experience. And the way that God has allowed me to forgive and just hold space and grace, I'm very thankful. But I met my dad, and I mean, he's like 4 years older than my mom. So he's in his 20s, in his prime time. He's out here living his best life. He got all his friend roommates. They in his house. They do what they do. My dad has this J-Lo booty pic. She got ruffled panties on. Honey, and y'all know J-Lo. She the booty and the body and she's beautiful. But this big old image was over his bed. He had his little nasty magazines. He had his little nasty screensavers. And he always took me to Hooters. Okay, so it's just this another layer added on to my journey of like very self-conscious and very over-sexualized, you know, seeing that women are overly sexualized and that this is how you receive love, this is how you receive admiration. And so it was like, noted. Okay. And so again, before I met my dad, I was very blunt. I had a lot of little baby views, right? I was a kid, but I was saying whatever without thinking twice about it. But after I met him, it was like, okay, no, maybe you actually need to not say anything at all, because he's going to chew you up and spit out the bones because you're wrong, or you're a child. You need to stay in a child's place, and you don't know what you're talking about. You overstepping boundaries. You're talking to me crazy, And again, I'm a kid. Like, teach me. But don't beat me with your words. And that's just what it always felt like. My dad has anger issues, and so he would go 0 to 100 real quick. I'm talking about to the bottom, to the top, past the ceiling. He had road rage and all that. So I just never felt safe within masculine energy. I never did. And every time I would talk to my dad, there was always an argument, even from when I was very little. Like, there's no jokes, there's no nothing. Like, he has a sense of humor, but it's so tucked away because there's just so much anger and hurt. So I would always hear him on the phone too, arguing with my mom and calling her a fat B and all of this other stuff, because my mama always wanted money, child support, whatever. And he would always say she's so entitled, and he would imitate her and talk in her ghetto black woman voice. And while I'm right there, I'm still very young. And, you know, when I was always with my mom, she would never say anything bad about him, but he always had a lot to say about her. And, you know, we grew up in the hood with my mom, and so my dad would always be like, I just want you to see other things. I want you to see life outside of that. I don't want you to see the hood. But I'm like, that's where you was at, and that's where you met my mom, which I agree. Like, teach your kids different, teach them better, but like, don't degrade and talk down. You know what I'm saying? When you was over here trying to be in the mix too, when you really didn't have to be, because my nana took care of my dad and made sure he had a crib. You know, there was one point where he didn't have a crib because of whatever their situation was. But, you know, my nana tried really setting him up. But he found himself in the hood. And he met my mom. And they were just a one-night stand too. So they didn't even know each other for real. And, you know, it was wham bam, thank you ma'am, and here I am. So them not knowing each other and having a baby with one another, and then me coming in at when I'm 5 years old, like, it was such a drastic shift for everybody. Like, nobody know what to do with all of this. Life is so spontaneous. You just pick up where things are and you do the best with what you got, right? Especially them and back then. So, um, you know, it took a lot for me to just be at that point. You know, I was on the dance team, I did the step team, I played basketball, I did volleyball. This is all in middle school, but in elementary I did talent shows and things too. And I just really loved performing. I really loved dancing. I really loved expressing myself. But even though after I met him and I was still doing these extracurricular activities and whatever, but I wasn't going full out, and I was still very much terrified, super shy, super withdrawn. And I just was like, I'm gonna do it, but I really wasn't doing it. And if I could go back now, maybe we would have been on them stages killing it. Like, don't play, right? But, you know, she just really wanted to protect herself. And by all means, like, do that, because we was getting attacked left and right on just who and how to be. But then too, there was a lot of things that I just didn't do because they were too black. Like, my friends went to Black Achievers and I wanted to join a sorority in college, and along with other things, I just didn't feel that my dad would be accepting of that, or my whole white side would be accepting of that. Because again, my dad would always say, like, Deja, you're two races, you're not one. Like, you're excluding your white side and just fully embracing your black side. And he was like, I just want you to know both. And I'm like, okay, so if you're going to, you know, want me to know both, like, educate me and like really create a safe space for me to feel comfortable in my whiteness too. Like, the only reason I was full on in my blackness and embraced it so much and really identified with it is because that's, you know, that was my foundation. I grew up with my black side from 0 to 5 only. And then, you know, once my white side comes in, it's like, okay, your hips, the way you talk, your hair, your sassiness, like, that's hood shit, right? That's what my dad would say, like, that's hood shit. Don't do this, don't do that. Why you only like black men? Why you only doing that? Why is all your friends just black? Why this, why that, why that? And it was like, okay, so everything I'm doing is under a microscope. So let me, you know, change the way I talk. Let me code switch. Let me shape shift. I would go over to my nana's, and I mean, baby, they pasty white. Like, they white, you know? And it's like everything is about image over there. And so it's like, look good and put together. And I really wanted to start straightening my hair a lot after meeting them. And, you know, my nana and them would always wear makeup, and so I started wearing makeup, and I just really started not to like anything about me. I didn't like my voice, I didn't like my hair, I didn't like my features, I didn't like my body at all. In middle school and high school, baby, I was wearing thick padded bras and like trying to bring shape to my body because I didn't have any chest and I didn't have any butt for real at the time either. But when I started developing, because I got caught having sexual relations with my first boyfriend that I was with for 7 years, from 15 to 22, I was put on birth control. And so, you know, I started getting thick in the hips and I started eating. And my dad would always be like, Deja, you need to slow down. And I'm like, okay. And he would be like, yeah, Nana said she sees it too. Like, you're getting thick, you're getting this. But they would be always asking if I wanted extras. Like, they would still be monitoring my plate. Like, you didn't eat that much. You didn't. And it would buy all these donuts and all these marshmallows and snacks. And we would eat out. And with my dad, honey, fast food is all we ate. From Monday through Sunday. We would go to the grocery store and we would cook when I lived with him. I feel like I'm bouncing around, but follow me, follow me, follow me. Before I lived with him, Okay, he would pick me up and we would go and we would get fast food. Maybe Arby's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, like loved them down. And so he would always take me to go get some fast food and then he would take me to my nana's and then he would leave. This is before I got into high school. Um, and so I'm like, okay, I mean, you feeding me. I don't have my own coins. So if you buying, I'm eating. And I love to eat. Okay? Like, I will pick up weight just looking at food. You know what I'm saying? Do you know my genetics? Baby, we can get thick. So, yeah, he would come and he would pick me up and we would do that. And also, too, like, there would be every other weekend because he would get me every other weekend. And sometimes he would come and sometimes he wouldn't. Bags packed, ready. My anxious and avoided attachment is just there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've worked a lot through it and it hasn't been easy, but you know, there's just a lot that I had to really work through. Of my dad not being there how I wanted him to, not having me feel safe and all the things. But yeah, so sometimes he would show up, sometimes he wouldn't. He would say, got caught up with work and all of that. And so, like, okay. But when I was a freshman in high school, I had my first, like, real little boyfriend. I'm all over the place. How do you tell your whole story? Okay, that was me rewinding. So, before we get into the high school part, I was also bullied, okay? In elementary to middle school. It stopped freshman year of high school, but I was bullied, okay? And they would make fun of my body having bee stings and now I looked like a little boy. They would make fun of me not talking because I did not like my smile and I was too afraid to say anything, so I would always be mute. And they would just, baby, say whatever. I grew up in the hood, say all the things that you can even think of. So yeah, so now we're gonna fast forward to high school when I was with my first little boo thing. I was my husband. You couldn't tell me different. That was my man. That was him, and he. That was just yeah, but he was my first. Okay, he was my first, and he didn't really have much going on, but neither did I. Baby, we in high school. Okay, so we get together, and I am the people pleaser of all people pleasers. I'm still very much mute, but I'm cute. And that's all I focused on, like my looks. As I said, like with my dad, baby, as a woman, you be seen, not heard. Your body is your tool for love, right? That's how men like you. That's how they show you attention. That's how you, so baby, I was the vessel. And that's what I was presenting. I didn't have any personality for you, for real. I didn't, like, think I'm cute, tell me I'm pretty, and like love me. Just love me. Be there for me, see me, understand me, all the things. And so I was looking for that little boo to do all of that at 15. I was a little older than him, so he was like 14, but we only a few months difference. But like, be my daddy, pretty much. Okay, like that's what we do. And you know, we was like best friends, I guess. I don't know. You feel like you best friends, especially because like that was my first, and there was just this connection. I thought like nobody could tell me nothing about him, and we was fine at first. Like in high school, it was cool. It was all right. And then I was still with him while I was in college. But yeah, we got caught doing the do and I got kicked out freshman year. And I had to go live with my daddy for a year and a half. So living with my dad after not really having the best of relationship with him to begin with was very difficult. For one, I mean, it was just always arguments. And for two, he wouldn't give me the space to even have a space, to even be and exist. It's just him, his world, what he's going through, what he wants, how he wants it, his views, adapt his views. If you don't adapt his views, if you think differently from him, it's an issue and he's gonna argue you down. So I stayed in my room pretty much the whole entire time and they told me to leave dude alone and I absolutely did not. That was my husband. I'm texting him in the closet. We on the phone late nights. I'm meeting him at games every Friday that my daddy's dropping me off to. Like, what? That's my man. Absolutely not. And you know, my mom, she stopped talking to me for a little while because you know, once that happened, she was like, get out of my house. You a whore. Why would you even do that in the crib? And my mom was always gone a lot of the time. She would be out at the club or with who she was dealing with at the times, and so that just always gave me space and opportunity to sneak him over and do whatever. And so, you know, she came in, she was very upset, and I'm a mama's girl. I'm still a mama's girl. And at that time, it really crushed me because I saw how mad she was, and she was dogging me out. She went, took her earrings off, changed her clothes, came in, and it was over. He left. She almost got him too, but she was just, her wrath was after me. And so she was throwing all my stuff in bags, and she called my dad and she told him. She was like, you could at least done it on the side of the house. Like, why are you doing this? And was pretty much disowning me at that time. Now again, children only do what they're conditioned to do or what they see in their environment. And so my mom was doing her thing. Like I said, she was trying to reclaim those teenage years and those childhood years that she lost. She was in a lot of pain, so she was in and out the crib. My grandmother would be watching us. My aunt would be watching us while she would be out on the weekends or during the week. And if they couldn't, it would just be me and my sister, and I would watch my sister. And so I literally was like the mom to both of my parents, so to speak. And my mom would come to me for advice very young. And there would be moments where she would shut down too, though, because she didn't know how to fully express what she was feeling, and she would just shut us out. And so we would just be like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? Me and my sister. And we just didn't have the slightest of clue. But there would be, you know, certain people in and out the crib, my mama doing what she wanted, you know, moments where I did not feel safe, and I would ask her to stay, and she would go, and a dude would be in the crib, and she would be like, just lock the door, I'll be back. He's in the room, he'll lock the door. And so with what my mom experienced in her childhood and things like that, I just really wanted, as she said, I'm gonna do everything to prevent it, but I still felt like she dropped the ball in certain aspects, in certain scenarios where me and my sister didn't really feel safe. And God just is incredible because God's hand was on me the whole entire time. So though I was in certain situations, nothing happened to me besides me putting myself in certain situations with men and things like that. But, you know, so my mom acting and being with these men, and my dad showing me that this is how you treat women, and they're only sexual objects, and your body, your body, body. So I'm doing the same thing, and I'm using my body. But with one that I love, though, like, that was my man. And, you know, it was just so beyond me to really see what was happening, because I thought it was normal, even though I knew it was wrong. But like, y'all do this. And so yeah, she kicked me out, and I stayed with my dad for a year and a half. But you know, I still was doing my thing. He had me working for him during the summertime, because he's like, there's no breaks in adult world. Like, you don't get no summer, so you're gonna be working with me. He had his own painting business at the time, and so I would be working with him. And when I wasn't working with him in the summer and I was having little off days, if I didn't answer the phone or text him back by 9 a.m., he would be at the apartment checking to see what I was doing, if I was up, because you know, he's like, I don't want you bringing that dude over here, which we lived all the way out East End, and that was in Shavley, so it was some distance, and we didn't have vehicles at the time. But yeah, my dad would always too, because he made some decent money at that time, and my nana and them, they have money, and like, they would always just hold things over my head. Not necessarily my nana and them, but my dad, he would be like, you know, if you don't do this or you do, you're not gonna get the car. I'm gonna take your phone. I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, okay. And so I moved back with my mom, just out of nowhere. My mom was like, you wanna go pick up your stuff? You ready to come back home? And I was like, hell yeah. So she took me with one of her guy friends, and I got all of my stuff, and my dad was livid, okay? Extremely livid. And I was so excited because I was miserable there. I cleaned, I went to school, I came back, I was in my room. He would be like, come out here, watch TV, and I'm like, no, because I didn't feel comfortable expressing my interest, and I don't want to watch golf or football, basketball. I don't want to watch the History Channel, the Science Channel. I don't want to watch none of that. So I'm just gonna stay in my room. And yeah, so you know, we didn't really do anything together. My dad wasn't really really in my life like that until I became a teenager. And he's like, oh no, you can't get pregnant like your mom and all of this. So then he was like drill sergeant, dictator, which he already was like that to begin with, but it was a new layer, because now you vulnerable, and you have the space to rewrite this whole narrative, and we have to prevent that. Which again, like, you coming from the right place, I feel you, but your delivery and your actions, it wasn't So, you know, there would be moments where my dad had called me stupid and he was always yelling. And the look in his eyes was like crazy. Like, I'm about to go off on you. And I was terrified of the man. I was so terrified. And so he would dismiss me. He would yell at me. He would say this and say that and imitate me like he would do my mom if I said school or like he would really make it a priority to really shine light on that and make me feel bad about it so that I can correct the way that I talk and just how I'm operating. Humiliate me at the end of the day. And, you know, my nana would always say, like, you know, when you get older, you ain't got to talk to him if you don't want to. I understand it's hard. I understand. So I would go to my nana, I would go to my aunt, and I would look for someone to confide in, to tell him what I'm feeling, to tell him what I'm experiencing. And I also went to my aunt, my mom's sister on my mom's side. And she was always there for me, always so helpful. And she was the main one that was like really there for me throughout my teenage years. Shout out to my Aunt Della. But yeah, I would go to my nana, I would go to my aunt, and they would run back and they would tell my dad. And so I never really had that outlet, that safe space where I could be seen and heard and just really try to work through my discomforts. But, you know, my nana would always be like, I'm here for you, I'm this, I'm that. But they were always on each other's side. Like, but that didn't really click for me until I became an adult and I had my own child. And then I was able to see their dynamic and how it affected me. Because I always admired my nana and I still do. She's a beautiful woman. Moving back with my mom, I got my job and I saved up $1,000. My grandmama took me and I was able to get my own car. My mom was helping out with car insurance and I was just working at Papa John's, saving up all my money, having my gas money, and, you know, really providing for my boyfriend still at the time because he didn't really have a job. And so I had the wheels, I had the job, and I was looking out for dude. You know, he wasn't able to graduate, so he didn't come to my graduation. And, you know, that was just this whole other dynamic of, again, I was the extreme people pleaser. I wanted to be the nasty, freaky girl. I wanted to do all the nice things for him because growing up there, like, you have to do everything for him. And in order to keep him, you got to look good. You got to put it down. You got to do this, do that. So I'm a teenager, like, trying to do all these things, work, go to school. And dude was just doing whatever he wanted to do. But, so I go to school. I go to EKU. That's an hour and a half away from my hometown. And I just knew that I had to get away. I did not want to go to school in the same city that I grew up in because I just didn't want to be around the same people that I just got out of high school with. You know, which there was a few that went to EKU too, but not nearly as much as if I was just to stay in the city. And, you know, we would still talk and argue, and I would be at home every other weekend to be with my man. And he wasn't still really working at the time. And I was working in school, in college, going back and forth every other weekend, getting him what he needed. I was high all the time because he liked to smoke and he didn't want to be with a girl who didn't like to smoke. And so I'm over here chiefing, losing even more marbles because I was so in my head and out of my body that I was overthinking everything. I was so mute. And then when I got high too, and then the weed that they were smoking was so strong, I would be high the next day. And it was just so uncomfortable. I was just so miserable, so trapped. But I just was like, I wanted something. I wanted to feel something. I wanted to feel love. I wanted to have somebody that loves me, and it wasn't love. You know, he was messing with girls. He was doing whatever. I was away. And so I was bending over backwards. And then there came a point where I believe it was my senior year, or right before my senior year. No, yeah, my senior year that we decided to break up. And, you know, I decided to leave. And we kind of like both agreed upon it because it was just, we wasn't really talking for real. It was getting so toxic. And there was a girl that DM'd me that he was messing with. I was dropping him off to work and she worked there with him. And she DM'd me and she was like, I hope you know I've been messing with him and da 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 da, and I'm not on birth control. And I was just like, oh. And this was right before one of my science exams and I could not even breathe, focus, study. I went in there and wrote my name on the paper and didn't even complete it, failed it, flunked it. And was just like, wow, okay. And he was doing the most, honey. He deserved the award. Oh no, Deja, I love you. Oh my goodness, he would call me drunk. He would have his family and things call me, text me. It was a mistake. I don't like her, whatever, the things that they do. And was like, okay, so I was still kind of messing with him. And then she was stalking me. And I would be at his place and she would be riding past, honking the horn and all these things. And I was just like, okay, this has to stop. And so I pulled back again. But then I was in my feelings. So I was in the club every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, not every single one, but I was in the club throughout the week and on the weekend. And I would literally I was crying in the middle of the club. My friends would be like, come on, sis, now you're messing up. You're messing up the vibe. What you doing? And I just couldn't help it. But I always saw my mom, my dad, and everyone else around me drink and smoke their emotions or, have sex. Use your body, get underneath another person, distract yourself. And so that's what I was doing. And for the longest, that was the only guy that I was with. He was my first. But then after we was done, it took me a minute to get back out in them streets. But once I did, I was in them streets. But then this time, and when I was with him too, I was literally so new and I was completely loyal and faithful to him. I didn't even look at other dudes, like not even a little bit. So I am in the streets. I'm dressing. I graduated college. Well, no. Yeah, I get a DUI. Pause. Moving too fast. But I get a DUI right before I graduate college. And I'm like, all right, who do I call? Baby, I don't know too many people's numbers, but I know his, and he's able to come pick me up. So he comes and pick me up, and I go out with him. He's working at the time too. I guess system put him on at the time, and he got him a good job or whatever. And I'm like, okay. He's like, can we go out? And we go out for the first time in a while. And honey, we go, we do what we do, and he's like, you can't buy no dude no cheeseburger. Like, I thought I'd done all of this for you. And I was like, in my head, I didn't say, but like, sir, 7 whole years, I did everything, paid for everything, did everything. And now you get a little something, got a little chain around your neck, and you come get me out of jail. That you looking for me to buy you a cheeseburger? Baby, the audacity. But I haven't learned to really advocate and speak up for myself at the time. So I was just like, I don't even think I really said much. But yeah, so that goes on. And then I graduated college and my best friend was like, they actually expecting a baby. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. But at the time I had started talking to my child's father, and this is before we had a baby. And I was like, you know what, I'm really not even bothered for real because I'm already underneath somebody. And so I'm with him, I'm working. I got 2 jobs. And well, before we made it official, I'm still out here. I'm in the clubs. I'm looking cute. I'm showing my body a little bit more. I'm talking to whoever I want to talk to. I'm working 2 jobs, so I got money coming in. I'm still living with my mama at the time, but I got me a nice car. Like, I'm that girl. But then I'm like, I have to leave and I have to move away from her because this ain't it for me. Like, that was such a liberating time for me. I was able to use my body how I wanted to. I was able to call the shots. I was able to just live it up and have fun and not really have to answer to nobody after answering to him for 7 years. And my dad and them, like, I'm free. Now let me move away. And I didn't even want to date anybody because I knew I was leaving and wasn't nobody going to keep me in Kentucky. But my child's father was like, I actually want to go to Texas too. Like, let's do it. So I moved to Texas with my best friend because that's where her dad lives. And we stayed with her peoples for a little bit. My childhood best friend. Stayed with her peoples for a little bit. I stayed with them for 6 months. I got me a good job there at the mental health clinic. Why did I say it like that? Mental health clinic. Was working, making good money with my social work degree. My first job, really making money with my social work degree. And me and him, we were away for that time. So he was a cop and he was saving up money so that he could move there. And our relationship was really distant. It started to get distant. Like, we were together for 6 months before I moved. And then I moved and we were away from each other for 6 months. And so it's like we were still getting to know each other. And you don't really know somebody until you live with them. So he moves to Houston, and it just got heavy really quick. Everything starts to resurface when you don't have all of the distractions or things that you didn't even know was there starts to surface. And it took him a minute to find a job. So like a month and a half. And so he was getting really depressed about that. And I was just looking for him to show me affection, like, please me, do this, do that, like you used to when we lived together at his place for 6 months before I moved, when we were all in awe of each other. And he had experienced things in his upbringing that kind of had us not really connecting. And so I automatically thought it was a jab towards me. I took it personally. I felt super insecure. I'm like, you don't want my body. You don't want to you don't want to love on me, like we've been away from one another, what? And you know, he was just like, these are things that I have to sort through. But he didn't communicate that in the best of ways either. So I told him, like, I'm about to go on this self-love spiritual journey. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be the same version of you that you met. And he told me, like, that's cool, do what you got to do. So I dive deep in it. I get into therapy. I started fasting. I cut my hair off. And this is during the pandemic too. So I cut my hair off. I'm outside grounding all the time. I got me a dog. I was always so terrified of dogs, but I truly believe that I'm here to combat every single fear. So I went and got me a dog. I'm working. He's not really connecting with me. We're not really engaging with one another. We're arguing. It's not good. I'm changing at a rapid pace, and I'm trying to introduce things to him to see what works for him. Not necessarily do what I do, but like, let me tell you what I'm learning. Let me tell you who I am. Have you tried this? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he would always be like, been there, done that. Don't really have much to say about that, or try to minimize the progress that I've made so that he doesn't have to take accountability and, you know, really lean in. So keeping me at arm's length. We was drinking before I started this. And, you know, when you drink, you kind of open up. And so he would open up, and then he would be like the next day, no, forget about that. Don't hug me. I'm okay. Like, I don't know what that was. And so I was like, okay, so do you want to do couples therapy? I'm already in my individual therapy. He didn't like therapy at all. So I'm like, something has to give though. If you don't want to do it on your own, would you mind doing it with me? And he was like, we can try it. So we did like 3 sessions, and I thought it was really good, but he didn't really think so. I took him to this what's it called, like smash therapy, where you can smash and break plates, glass plates and all of that, and that was really nice. He enjoyed that. But I mean, we went once. That wasn't gonna really dig in and help nothing. You know, so we tried several different things, and it just still wasn't what it needed to be. And I'm, you know, learning from each relationship that I'm in, and really dissecting. And I'm so analytical, so I'm like processing everything as I'm going through it, and I'm so vocal to him, and I'm telling him every part of like where I am, what's going on, what I'm thinking. And he would tell me similar things, or he wouldn't really tell me much. And he's like, you gotta peel back the layers, you gotta get to know me, you gotta pull it out of me. And I'm like, bro, I've been trying, and there's nothing else that I can do. It's not fair to me. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that I, you know, responded to your struggles in the best way when you first got here. I know I didn't, but I really am trying because I love you and I want to be with you. Like, how can we make this work? And, you know, he was just, it was like pulling teeth. I felt really alone with being with him. I felt very dismissed, and he would play on my emotions too, you know, like my father would. Like, it's just, yeah, it's a lot. But he would just really find avenues to make me feel away, because he knows that I'm super compassionate, I'm super understanding. I'm gonna extend grace, like whatever, just let me know so that we can figure it out. And so he would say certain things and get me super emotionally invested to make certain decisions, or to just like love on him and like forget what we argued about or anything like that, and just like, oh, you know. And so it took me a while to really catch on to that. And most of my healing in therapy was pertaining to me and masculine energy. Like, how can I express my concerns or my feelings or emotions? How can I have a conversation without being super combative and feeling like I have to protect myself or shield myself because of what I experienced with my father? Like, I really wanted to know, because I really want love, you know. So I was just really trying to do my part to make sure that I can uphold my half. And if I mess up, I would write it down. You know, not necessarily mess up, but like if I did something to hurt his feelings, like let me know. I would write it in my journal and really try to trace back, like, when did this start for me? How did this come about? So I can be mindful and not hurt his feelings again. But I broke up with him before we left Houston. He didn't like Houston, and I absolutely loved it. But he was like, no, I don't like it here. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't even know if we need to be together. And he was like, no, we do. And he put on this whole thing and convinced me, and I stayed. And then we went and moved to Ohio. That was closer to family, because he just didn't want to be that far away from family. And so we get to Ohio, and, you know, he's really landing on me like I've changed, and he's talking about the things that I talk about, and he's showing interest in the things that I show interest in, and he's trying to make all of these changes, saying that he wants, because he wants to. And you know, we're feeling each other. The sex is coming back, and 2 or 3 months after moving to Ohio, I get pregnant. After I get pregnant, you know, it's like, wow, I really don't even think we're really supposed to be together. But I mean, here we are. And he's working overtime. He's doing what he needs to do because I was very adamant about having my daughter at home naturally. And so I'm like, I don't know what it is that we have to do, but we have to figure it out. And he was on board with that. So he's working, doing what he has to do so that we can pay 5 bands to have this home birth. And you know, we didn't really have sex throughout the whole time I was pregnant, and I'm still processing through like healing my, you know, my body and connecting with my body again throughout all these phases, and just really leaning in to learn like why I respond certain ways and why certain things hurt my feelings, and trying not to project that onto him. You know, but he's just like, I don't want to do that. That's just weird to me. My baby's in there, and I'm like, okay, you know. So I really learned that relationships are so much more than your body, and I appreciate learning that with him. And we got to connect on a deeper level in ways that we could connect, and that was really nice. But you know, really having a friendship and it not just being super overly sexual, like with me and my first boyfriend in high school. Like, that's how we did. Okay, that's how we did. But yeah, so he is doing what he needs to, and I have my daughter at home. But throughout having my daughter, before we had her, like, I've done a lot of research and healing. I was drinking herbs. I was, like I said, I was fasting, like completely different from my hot Cheeto, hot sauce, fast food, drinking, smoking, having sex all the time, that version of myself. So God really allowed me to learn a lot before I had my baby, and to detox my body, and things like that. But also too, another rewind real quick, may I add that because I broke up with him and we moved to Ohio, all these things, and he really wanted to be with me, he also knew my ovulation. He knew how to track it. He kept track, and I thought it was so cute. Like, you really pay attention to me. But the day we conceived my child, he knew that I was ovulating, and usually we say, you know, or he asked, like, can I go ahead and razzle dazzle? And I would be like, yes or no, but he didn't ask that day. And that's something that I really had to process and work through, you know, and talk to him about. And that hasn't been the best either, and I've still dismissed after talking to him about that. But you know, at the end of the day, at the time I didn't think much of it, and I was just happy. I've always wanted a baby. Before I had her, I was literally preparing for her and didn't even know it. I had a dream about her name when we were in Houston. God led us to Ohio, and we were able to find a midwife. Like, everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't change anything. But what happened, and I'm laying it out there. So yeah, he's working, whatever, and I have my daughter, and I'm really learning to advocate for myself and not people please, and not be so codependent on him or anybody for the matter. And you know, being able to relearn and unlearn and just open my mind to the world that I truly want, or that I thought I wanted at the time. And so, because I did so much research and things about natural birth, even with my midwives, I'm going into our appointments every however often we were going, and they're telling me stuff and I'm telling them stuff, and they know that I'm educated on natural birth and doing whatever I need to make sure that she can get her healthy. You know, I'm super healthy. I'm not playing, okay? And also too, I started my business, my first business, which is Divine Goddess Flow, and that was a natural, holistic, spiritual tool shop where I was selling sage, pens, journals, things like that. But as soon as I launched it, I found out I was pregnant, and I didn't do nothing with that business. And all I was focusing on was my daughter, and to get her here safely and naturally. So I put all my energy into that. I was doing birth and hypnosis. I was drinking my herbs and eating properly, working out, going on my steps. I was going to the chiropractor, and I got a massage. Did I get a massage? Or maybe I wanted a massage. Maybe I got one. I don't know. Next pregnancy, maybe that's what we on. But the chiropractor was everything. And yeah. So even while I'm at, you know, with my midwives, I'm letting them know, like, I know certain things, whatever. And, you know, my daughter, we have her naturally at home, It was so beautiful. I was in labor for 13 hours. My child's father's car was stolen that day too. And so I was so mad, child. I was like, why do you keep leaving? As soon as the midwives got there, and he was like, well, I didn't want to tell you, but somebody stole my car. And I looked at him like, okay, we just gonna deal with that later. This is more important, okay? So yeah, that's such a story for another day too. But her birth ended up being so beautiful. And once she got here, you know, like we jumped head first into parenthood. And, you know, my family, my dad's side, before she had got here, I feel like I'm so long with it. This is a long story time. Not story time, it's just life. Okay. But thank you for being here. Well, before I had my baby shower, I had posted something on Facebook that was a post from somebody else. I reposted it, and it was just like, it's not the parents' responsibility to take the kid to have a relationship with everybody. And so my nana screenshotted it, sent it to my dad. My dad called me barking, and I'm 7.5 months pregnant at the time. And again, like, everything just set me up to have these uncomfortable conversations and these karmic invitations to really stand on who I am and everything that I've learned and everything that I've processed, so that I can finally have a voice. And so, you know, I'm like really in my feelings. You talking to a pregnant lady like this. My baby shower was in a couple days. They had feelings about my baby shower being in Ohio because their in-law was an hour and a half away. Like, they just always have something to say. And so, you know, my nana just like, she orchestrates a lot of things, but she likes to keep her hands clean. And my daddy is good for it. He's gonna say and do and pop off because he's just a firecracker like that. But like, you're not gonna keep talking to me like that. So that really hurt my feelings, and I talked to her about it. She was like, I really just didn't think that he would go off like that, and I'm just so sorry, but it did hurt our feelings. You should really take that down, because I'm sure that your other family probably feels some type of way about it. And so I took it down, and I didn't post on Facebook for so long. And again, I've been so used to being silenced, where I was like, I'm not going to continue to do that. Like, you can't tell me what to say, how to show up, how to feel. Like, I said what I said for a reason. And if you felt like it was directed towards you, why? If the shoe fit, wear it. But don't nobody get offended unless they know that they ain't right. So, you know, it just was like, okay, so we close to the home, you know, an hour and a half away from home versus 14. Luckily, you know, we have a baby, but even still, my dad's side of them, they weren't really coming out to see us. We always had to go to them. My mom and them, my family from Florida, like all of them, they came and visited us in Ohio in our 400 square foot studio apartment where I gave birth to her. No issue. So then out of nowhere, my child's father was like, oh, and we're on leave for 2 months. He's super paranoid, PTSD. He's 2 months with a newborn in a 400 square foot studio, smoking weed all day because he has a condition, and he was able to get a medical license to help with it, whatever. And so he's over here paranoid. We're arguing. He doesn't want me to go anywhere. He's afraid of this, afraid of that. And he's dumping things on me, and I told him I didn't have the space or capacity to hear any of that. Like, I'm just trying to learn breastfeeding. My vagina's split open. I'm bleeding. Wearing a pimp all day. Like, hold the rest of the trauma. I don't need no more dumping. But he proceeded to do it anyway. And there was just nowhere to run to, you know. And this feel like it needed part 2, child. But yeah, so there was nowhere to run to, and I just was like, how the hell am I about to do this? So he finally goes back to work, and that helps some. And then out of nowhere, he's like, Deja, we need to move to Louisville, go all the way back home. I never thought that I would even get that close to home to begin with. I was cool with being away. But he's like, we really need to go here. I found this job. They're going to pay me good. And I'm like, are you sure? Because, baby, it's Child Protective Services, and everybody knows what comes with Child Protective Services. And if you don't, this is what it is. And he's like, no, I got it. I can do it. So he had us leave our apartment 4 months before our lease was up, which was like $4,000 to get out and pay for the deposit for the other apartment in Louisville as well. And so pretty much depleting all of our savings yet again. And we go there, and he works that job for a couple weeks, 2 weeks maybe. And then he's like, I don't want to do it. It's too much. I can't be away from my family. I can't do this. I can't do that. And luckily, I convinced my job at that time to let me work fully remote from a whole different city. They've never done that with anybody else, but they agreed to do it because I was already pretty much mainly working from home. And so I was able to keep that job for that whole year. But, you know, it's like, what if I wouldn't have been able to do that? We would have really been out of luck. And so he had started trying to find this job, that job, this job, that job, and nothing was sticking. He was getting one, leaving, and we was depleting all of our savings. I was using my credit cards, and again, just constantly playing on my emotions and all of this. And so I always knew I wanted to become a life coach, and I saw one of the life coaches that I followed. I found her as soon as I moved to Houston. She was amazing. She told me about the program that she had just graduated from, and I was like, I gotta do that. It was $5,000, and I've never spent that much of my own money on me like that. And I had talked to him about it, and I don't know why I talked to him about it, because he really even talked to me about anything. It's just like, put your big girl panties on and we doing it. You know what I'm saying? Get out your feelings, right? But I talked to him about it because we have a daughter, and it's like, that's a lot of money. And I'm terrified, but I invested that. I was in my 5 months coaching program. It was the best thing ever. And then I graduated, and I started healing and rewiring my mind even more. And I'm like, yo, I can't be with him no more. I can't do it no more. Like, the look on his face, his body, he was stressing me out. I was stressing him out. I lost all respect. I called him a B, and I don't call nobody out their name, but and I apologize for that. But I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. We lost everything. And so I had to make a power move to see how I can get me and my daughter out of living like this. And so left him and we had to move to Lexington, Kentucky, because that's where he's from. And we didn't have anything. He didn't have anything. And so he had to go back and live with his mama. And I was able to apply for a low income apartment in Lexington and got approved. I had to stay with my mama for that weekend after we moved out. And then I got approved that that Friday, I got approved. And they were like, you can move in Monday. So I only had to stay with my mom for 2 days, which was amazing. Because I didn't know where me and my daughter was going to go. I didn't have no money for real. I only had just enough for that, and my job ended up being like, everybody got to come back to office. They had got a new manager, whatever, and they were like, we're switching everything up. So I knew that it was time for me to quit my job, but I just did not have the guts to do it. And then they were like, nope, you can't do it no more. And I was like, okay. So I took all my stuff back to Ohio, then moved to Lexington. I was in my first official apartment by myself, and I got a job. And I worked that job for 4 months. It stressed me the heck out. I was still breastfeeding my daughter at the time. I had to wing her off because, baby, this is too much. It's too much. I tried making it to 2 years. We made it to 21 months. Very proud. And all my tatas is gone. But, yeah, I worked that job for 4.5 months. And I was like, I absolutely cannot do this. Can't do it. And I went on a 6-week fast. And that's when I got the confirmation that I could, and I stopped doing business and I was just working. I started going to church, and that's when I got the confirmation that I cannot do both. And so I quit my job and I started pursuing business full-time and raising my daughter full-time. And I was terrified, but I was nowhere near as terrified as when I was thinking about quitting my job, my previous job before that one. I had knots in my stomach. But it truly is powerful to see how the build up, like, it gets easier. The unknown is terrifying. And I used to have such horrible gut issues. And it was just like no hesitation. The next day I put in my 2 weeks. And then my supervisor was like, so are you going to find another job? What are you going to do? And I said, God going to take care of it. And everybody was looking at me like I was crazy. And right after I put my 2 weeks in, though, this money appeared that I could have used when I was with my child's father and we were struggling because he depleted all of our savings. But it wasn't the time for me to use it. It came about right after I put my 2 weeks in. So I was able to provide a couple months, pay my bills a couple months up while I pursued business and things like that. And then money started to run out, but I was still able to pursue, being the coach that I always wanted to be. I was having in-person sessions and events. I did online events. I became a school mentor. And yeah, I did a collab and it was beautiful. But then my lease was coming up to an end. I also had people, family and friends help me, because business wasn't booming like that. Okay, so I had a lot of help, and God put a lot of beautiful people around me to help me during that time. A lot of people didn't agree with my choices, thought I was crazy and all of that, but they still didn't know the ins and outs of what I was dealing with. So then, yeah, I left my apartment because the lease was up. Thank you, God. I was able to complete a whole full lease term. Then I moved in with my friend for 2 months, and I was like, I have to fast and I have to figure out what I need to do and where I need to go from here. I'm not attached to a lease. I never wanted to be back in Kentucky to begin with, but it served its purpose, and I'm so grateful. So I did a 2-day water fast with a smoothie on day 2 because my body was okay. And yeah, and I got confirmation to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I started talking to my child's father about the move like 6 months before all of this transpired, and he was not fond of it. But again, I always did what he wanted to do, and it was time for me to make that call and again do something that's going to benefit me and my daughter, and I know would be good for us. So got some more money, that came, and I was able to have a couple $1,000s to move to Charlotte. I paid $2,000 to have a hotel, apartment style hotel for 3 weeks for me and my daughter. Packed our bags, moved there without telling anybody besides my child's father and the friend that I was staying with. Get there, and 4 days later, my car is repossessed. So my nerves are shot, and I'm like, okay, I can't breathe. Call her dad. I need you to come get her so that I can figure things out, because I wasn't expecting it to go this way, right? And so he comes, he picks her up, and I'm in that hotel for 2 weeks by myself. The first 3-4 days I was in there without even leaving, because I was like, God, I need to hear you. I need to fast. I need to hear you. I need no distractions. I need to process this. I need to, honey, get some wind up underneath me. I can't breathe. I don't know what to do. And then my stepmom, she came after not seeing her in over a decade or talking to her really. She was coming into town because that's where she's from. I didn't even really know if I knew anybody here, right? But I DM'd her and I was like, I'm gonna be here at this time. And she was like, oh really, me too, I'm coming in for my nephew's graduation. I'm like, oh my goodness, great. So we was able to reconnect and see one another, and it was so beautiful. And the lady that she stays with while she's in town was like that I could stay there too. And at first it was only for a couple days, and then she was like, you can stay there for a month or so. And so my stepmom ends up going back to LA where she lives, and I'm just in this woman's house for a couple days while she's in Arizona. And she's like, yeah, make yourself at home. My home is your home. I'm like, what? God, this is crazy. I'm staying in a whole woman's house I ain't never even met. And she's like, just stay there. And then she gets here and we meet, and she's so beautiful. And she's like, you can stay here until September, August. You can stay here as long as you need. I said, what the heck? What the helly? Okay. And just a lot of the times, like, the way God do it and orchestrate it, and also you making your steps and trying to make your calls and wanting it to go a certain way, like, it all ends up working out how it's supposed to. It may not be the most feasible. It may not be, like I said, what you envisioned it, and it may not all make sense. But that's the good thing about God. Like, everything ain't gonna make sense. And I mean, it's gonna be blessings that just are out of nowhere. But it's like you're being obedient. You're always going to be taken care of. Trust that. So yeah, I've been here ever since. And you know, a lot of people don't agree with the decisions that I've made, but I am happy with really using my voice and disconnecting from the limiting beliefs and the habits and the things that really had me stuck to my wounds, and that those ways of living, that just wasn't how I wanted to live my life. And it's my life to choose how I want to live it, and I'm guided by God. And so I put God above man every single time, and I'm never stirred wrong. And God had me in that apartment for a whole year, made sure that I only worked for 4.5 months, but made sure that I could be in there for a whole year to connect with God, so that I could make this move and do all of this crazy stuff that requires crazy faith that don't make sense to nobody else but me and God, because that's who I'm co-creating with. And it's just been really empowering and inspiring. And I'm just, honey, going from here. Never tell me I can't do something. Never tell me I'm afraid. I may be afraid, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I've done so much to reclaim my identity, to reclaim my voice, and to reclaim my truth. So even me sitting here and saying all of this right now, that's very long-winded, but it took a lot for me to even get to this point to do this. When I've been rejected, abandoned, dismissed, and stepped on, bullied, mute. I did not talk for more than half of my life. These 7 years have been the most I've ever talked. And these last 2 have been groundbreaking. So it's still all just getting started. This is still just all the beginning. And people will feel a way about you choosing yourself and calling your shots and making decisions that feel right to you. But you have to stand on them, and you have to honor your truth and your desires, because they're yours for a reason. People get to live their lives. Anybody and everybody else, they can deal with their wounds, they can deal with their drama, they can deal with their lives and their jobs, their setup exactly how they want to. I'm not gonna fault you. I'm not gonna tell you how. I'm not gonna nothing. But if you want to know how to do certain things, or if you want to know how to release certain things, or if you want to know how to step into certain things, I'm your girl, because I'm gonna do it. At the end of the day, I'm just built to do it, and I'm so honored that God brought me all this way to do it. Didi never thought that we would be here. Didi is inside of me screaming because she's terrified, but also screaming because hell yeah, we finally got a voice. We finally get to do what we want. I get to raise my daughter how I want. I got to bring her into this world how I wanted to. I'm healing my body on a daily basis, connecting with my body, opening my heart even more, reprogramming my mind even more. Life is the occasion. There's not just a moment that's the occasion. My whole entire life's been the occasion. And God has been on my, covering me the whole entire time. But yeah, I'm gonna walk how I want. I'm gonna talk how I want. I'm gonna date who I want. I'm gonna do the work that I want. I'm gonna raise my daughter how I want. I'm gonna live how I want. I'm gonna praise God how I want. It's my life. And what? I get to live it how I want. So yeah, that is my story. You may get more of the story the more I tell it, but this is my first time telling it like baby charcuterie board. Different flavors, a little crunchier, a little salty, a little sweet. Honesty, transparency, and I hope that this is able to help somebody, anybody. Me just having this space to tell you all has helped me tremendously more than you know, so thank you. And yeah, we're gonna continue to see it through, and we're gonna continue to live the lives that we're truly deserving of because God gave us the permission to. So let's do that. I love you.